This news
and a Golden Angel Award ceremony.
Hello, dear friends, lovely audiences, my dear brothers and sisters. I should say my fellow American citizens, please be welcome to the East-West Show, exclusively sponsored by Wolfers, the Belgian royal family designated brand of jewelry that has 400 years of history, hand-forged by 10 generations of the greatest craftsman, which stands for a testimony to the spectacular and the share of royal glory. That brings us to the show today. With me is my good friend, a great man of Los Angeles, of Hollywood. He is a producer, writer, director, and also he is a political commentator. And by the way, he is an archivist who has dug through into the library, into the archives for so many tons of information, which helped him making 21 series of documentary film. His name is Mr. Chris Nibby.
谢谢你，
Welcome to the show.
早上好。
All right, good. 早晨好, That's good Chinese. Ayamaya. That's
Ayamaya.
good. Ayamaya, you know that, right? All right, good. Now, we are today doing a discussion which, in my eye, is not from the perspective of the news. It goes to a profound level to see the inside of an instant. Subject is, why do we see so many gun violences? That's today's subject, right? So I would like to start by hearing from you, what's your impression or response when you first heard about El Paso, Texas?
The same as to all the mass shootings, it's a phenomenon. Constant mass shootings, a phenomenon of in America. It's a psychological disease. You don't find it anywhere in the world.
All right, that's a good definition.
Yeah.
And what else?
It's endemic. It's and you never know when the next one is happening.
Right after that, the old subject, the century-old subject of gun right versus gun violence, gun right versus the pro-gun control whatsoever, is going back on stage. And there are lots of talk, blah, 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 on this same issue, of course, as you can expect, because we learn from the past experiences. For a week or two with the blah, 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 things will get quiet down. Everything would stop, right? They capitulate from the argument. Everybody go back to their own business.
But you see,
until there's another one.
But you see, there is no chance to change that, because there are about an estimated amount of 300 million firearms in America. So gun control can only go to the extent of background checks. That could be intensified, but nothing else. Because if you want to have a gun, and if you want to kill somebody, you will get a gun.
Do you, by the way, do you support gun control?
To the extent that there is background checks, because that's all you can do. If you want, in some states, it's easier to get a gun than a bottle of whiskey, because they have alcohol restrictions.
All
so this is
that I agree.
So you see, this is not something you can control. It's too late. It's too late, because if you can't buy a gun in an official store, you buy it on the black market. It's no problem.
You want to hear something from me?
Yeah.
All right. In California, we do have a strict gun control laws, right? Whereas the other states, such as Texas, they are not talking about gun controls. They are talking about everybody has a CWC, concealed weapon certificate or something like that, right? Now, it is found out through research that this very shooter, the 21-year-old guy, drove around within 300 miles radiation. That specific Walmart was the only one which is made by the local laws of gun-free zone. In other words, within that Walmart, in that area, the area centered with that Walmart, nobody had a gun.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. He purposely did that, and that was the gun-free zone. All right. Had it been not a gun-free zone, or had it not been a gun-free zone, things will not happen. At least somebody will confront the bad guy until some law enforcement arrive. Do you agree with me with this?
Yes, I do, because it's logic.
Yeah, it is logic, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, what you have? You look not happy.
No, I'm not happy because it's as you said before. Once it happens, there's a flurry of discussions and all that, and then it sort of goes down and until the next shooting happens.
Yeah.
It's the violence, gun violence, is part of this American culture, and like every country has its own cultural speciality. Mm-hmm. So gun violence has been here forever, and I mean Hollywood has made heroes out of gunslingers, and the hero in every Western or even today in every action film is always the one who shoots faster than the other one.
Yes,
Very
you're
simple.
right. Mm-hmm.
So with this kind of mentality and the history of war, for example, America is about now 239 years old, and out of 239 years, 222 years, America has been at war at some place. And when you look and you hear how they always praise the boys, our boys, saving our lifestyle in faraway countries, as they praise the military and all that. That's something.
I have two takes that made me not agree with you.
Yeah.
Right. Number one, the definition of war has to be reconsidered. Our military activity or military involvement is the tactic or being a part of national defense, right? And our military appearance in some region, somewhere, somehow, you cannot call them wars, right? Number two, what happens at the military front, though, doesn't have to be reflected in the day-to-day life of American people.
But it is.
Well, what American people see, okay, now, suppose if there is a conflict at a church in Russia, right? So the most you can see is from TV, a few shots, bam, 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 bam. That's it, right? It doesn't influence the American people, especially the young people, that much. What does influence is the Hollywood culture. You did mention part of it, the Hollywood culture, the killing culture. Do you agree with me in that area, please?
You cannot blame Hollywood alone. It's also the wars. Have you checked? Please check. In the 222 years, all of these wars were wars of aggression. There was not one war where anybody was attacking America. Please check your history and you will see that I'm right.
I know.
So I don't buy what you just said. I'm sorry.
Americans so far, except Pearl Harbor, has never been attacked right? Yet, except Pearl Harbor,
Right.
for which we revented in a big way, right? Okay. Now, that doesn't mean we want to stop our military appearance, military involvement, other areas for the longer run of national defense. That's a different map you're reading, different book you're reading. That's a different animal we're talking about.
Defense means defend against an attack. If there's no
Defense
attack,
against any possible incoming attack, and also that includes a part of the American people, the domestic safety, right? So now, let's focus with the Hollywood culture. When you say not Hollywood being alone to be blamed, what else you think is to be blamed?
nobody. It's a gun culture of America. Remember, this country was created with white people with a gun, white people from Europe, colonialists from Europe with a gun in their hand. And they annihilated the Native Americans, they enforced slavery, and so on. So
all right, I'm
that's
glad
the
you mentioned
culture
that.
of this country.
I'm glad you mentioned that. I'm glad you mentioned the history of United States from that early stage, right? If we do, you and I probably won't really come back to see what happens in this piece of land. I mean, from the moment right after Christopher Columbus, how about that? Mm-hmm. Or we can do it right after May Day, right? Of 1776, I guess, right? Something like that. How about that? Mm-hmm. All right. Now, my dear friends, in order to find the answer to why we see so much gun violence, that my friend and I, Mr. Chris Nibby and I, we agreed to go back to the American history to the point either from Mayflower or even back from early stages of right after Christopher Columbus. So stay with us. We'll be right back.
Senator Brown stands rebound. We have continued to work on it now. My name is Paul James. I host English News every morning.
And the Golden Angel Award ceremony.
Hello, my dear friends, my lovely audiences. Welcome back to the discussion, the East-West show that is exclusively sponsored by Wolfers, the Belgian royal family designated brand of jewelry, which has 400 years of history and handforged by 10 generations of the greatest craftsmen. That stands for a spectacular, testimony for spectacular and a share of the royal glory. Welcome back to the discussion about why do we see so much gun violences, right? Including massive shooting of last week at El Paso, Texas. With me is my friend, Mr. Chris Nibby. We are going to touch base with you about American history. So, before Christopher Columbus discovered this land, who were the indigenous of the land?
Native Americans.
Native Americans,
Indians.
which were the Indians,
Yeah.
right? And what happened ever after the discovery?
They were annihilated, systematically driven westwards and systematically annihilated by white Europeans.
Not black,
No.
by white. Mm-hmm. And what did white do to the Indians?
Annihilated them.
Was there slaughters?
Yes. And
All
how?
right. Killings?
Terrible.
Driving out?
Yes.
Right? All the way for several hundreds of years.
Right.
Right? They were taken, their homes were taken, their lands were taken, their grains were taken whatsoever. For themselves, they were either killed or driven to go west.
Yeah.
So, west until California, until they went across the Rocky Mountain area, which is the most tedious part. They discovered California. The moving of going west never stopped.
But there were already indigenous tribes here, Native Americans.
Yeah, in California too. So they decided to settle because there's no way to further moving because there's water over there, right?
Yeah.
So now, in the process of driving the indigenous going west, though, what did the white do?
They killed them.
To kill them. In addition to killing them, what did they do themselves? They opened plantations.
Yeah.
Right? For plantations, they need
Cheap labor.
cheap, healthy, strong,
Labor which they imported from the Caribbean.
hardworking
Africa.
people.
Yeah.
For which they started the black
slavery.
slavery.
Right.
To bring slave in. So again, from the moment of they discovered the land, to the moment they created black slavery, though, who were the masters of the land?
White.
The
people.
white, right? Until the abolition of slavery, the land was mastered by European white.
Right.
Right? Did that or does that, would that create a culture of the white supremacy?
Yeah.
Okay, from there on, so it's yours. I'm listening to you.
Yeah. And racism is the tragedy of America, will always remain the tragedy, and everything you see today is all based on racism. This morning, they have this news that now green cards are being restricted basically only for able and fit people, which is understandable, but on the other hand, it also means that that they want to stop that somebody brings their aging parents from abroad and has them possibly rely on the social services here. So it's all racism, and it will remain so because right now you see, if you look in another 50 years, the white people in this country will be a minority, and they are defending their turf, and that's all. And in their heart, every white American is a racist.
All right, okay, I agree. But the green card issue this morning, though, can be another discussion subject for another time.
Good.
Right. Now let's focus on the white supremacy from the embryonic stage to the strongest period of time in history. To right now, the population of the white are shrinking, is shrinking, right? They're gone through a whole process, right? In which there was a time, in which people produce the conflict between black and white.
Not only between black and white, between brown, between everybody who is not white. That's
okay,
it.
now,
Racism concerns
between colored and not colored, how about that?
right, the people of color.
Yeah, between the colored and the not colored.
Yes.
How about that, right? And the conflict remains until all of a sudden there came a colored president of the United States, which is Barack Obama. They started to pin lots of homes to the word change. And after 80 years, nothing had been changed. So disappointment took place. Am I right? They disappointed. So there was a rebound from the disappointment, and then which indicates to the to the white that, well, they want to do theirs. They want to rescue the white supremacy from dying. And then during the whole process of conflict, you have all of a sudden another president of the United States who calls others shitholes, if I quote, if I may, right? So this is how I read the several hundred years of American history to conclude that there is an existence of the white supremacy which is getting bigger.
No, and also you see the forces who rule this country, because it's not the government you hear or see who rules the country, or other forces who rule this country, they are using these growing fascist and white supremacy ideologies to divide American society so totally that it seems that they do not care, that it seems that a large amount of people really doesn't care for each other anymore. Social bonds and good neighborhood relations have become unaffordable luxuries.
Which I agree. And that is reflected in the division of this country. We've never seen this divided partisan. We've never seen this divided people.
And it's going to get worse.
Regular people.
It's going to get worse.
It's going to get worse.
Yes, because you see, it's the struggle. You talked about Christopher Columbus.
Mm-hmm.
You know that the Vatican, the Catholic Church, with the Concord of Discovery, we talked about that some time ago, 1492, empowered the white people and of Spain. At that time, Spain was the most powerful country in the world, and the Pope in Europe at that time was the biggest authority, not the kings, because they all had to listen to the Pope, and he told them, the New World is yours, Spanish. That's why Latin America is Spanish. That's why large parts of America were also Mexican, Spanish-speaking people. So this order of discovery is still on the books of the Vatican, and that gave the white man also the moral authority and the moral excuse to do what he did. And that is, this is a culmination of many, many bad influences over centuries, and it's going to get worse because there will be, there will be an economic recession, and then it will get really bad.
Yeah. Make a long story short, right? The white supremacy was flourishing for a period of time, quite a period of time during history, in which the black slavery was an indication, right? Now, along with the abolition of the black slavery, though, the influence of the white supremacy is dying, is shrinking, now to a point that some feels unfair to let them die. They want a kickback. What we see, do you agree with me? What we see is a kickback of the dying supremacy.
I don't think it's organized. It's not somebody there telling you have to do mass shootings or something to people. I think it's in the spirit and in the mentality of the society that people get inspired by this underlying racism to take a gun and say, okay, I'm going to shoot.
All right, very good point. Very, very good point. We would just have to touch that point. My dear friends, in the discussion of why do we see so much gun violences, that my dear friend Chris Nibby, my guest, my VIP guest, have come to a point that It is not an organized trend or organized activity or action for bringing the white supremacy back. It is a trend. It's a conceptual stuff. Why do we see the concept? Well, there has to have a root. There has to have a cradle, right? So now, let's take a short moment out. We really come back upon it. So stay with us.
Everything we continue to work on it now. My name is Paul James. I host English news.
And a Golden Angel Award ceremony.
Hello, my dear friends, my lovely audience. Welcome back to the show, Jack Chow on the East West, which is exclusively sponsored by Wolfers, the Belgian royal family designated brand of jewelry that has 400 years of glorious history, hand forged by 10 generations of the greatest craftsmen, which stands for a testimony of spectacular and a share of the royal glory. Back to the show. My dear friend, my VIP today, Mr. Chris Nebe from Hollywood, a producer, writer, and director, all internationally renowned. Welcome back to the show. All right. Now, I do agree with you. It is not an organized action or movement to revive the white supremacy. However, there has to have a cause. What in your eye is the cause?
You know, before you had as organized white supremacy, you had the Ku Klux Klan. There are leftover organized extreme organizations like this, which are a particular kind of white people who are not actually, let's say it, intellectually blessed. Mm-hmm. And of course, not all Americans are racist, but there is a general trend, and in a society which in a globalized world, a society which is so open and where everybody knows everything, this concept of racism in a country which was built on immigration, and you know, first it was only Europeans, then it came, the blacks were brought in, and then other people came and fled their countries. Poverty, political dictatorships, many reasons. And they all made their life here. And all of a sudden, this country is no longer the heaven of this. The American dream is becoming more and more difficult to achieve. Even though I know a lot of immigrants from other countries than Europe, because Europeans do not immigrate anymore to America. It's more or less the so-called third world. And all of them are very successful because, you see, the American themselves has also become comfortable. There has never been a war on their soil, with the exception of Pearl Harbor, but again, that was far away. And so there is still, the opportunity here is still there, but it's become limited. And so now everybody who is not in a good economic situation blames somebody else. Mm-hmm. They're blaming China, they're blaming this. You see, the companies, multinational corporations closed their offices here, moved elsewhere, where it's cheaper to produce, etc., etc. And this
in other
is
words,
all
we
together.
wrongly blame others rather than looking at ourselves,
Right.
right?
Yes.
Right. Look at the Hollywood films. Look at the gaming industry, right? The week before, we were, my wife and I and the kid were in the theater, right, waiting for film, right? There's a area for kids, right? And the 1, 2, 3, 8 machines, right? All the 8 screens, you see nothing, you hear nothing but da 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 killing, right? So you call it a game or training? It's training.
It's making money because that sells.
Yeah, for them, for the owners, they make money, right?
Yeah.
And then for the kids, though, they go there to accept their training, to accept the class
Yeah, and
of shooting.
They become sanitized because their mind is, okay, violence is the answer to all my problems.
Yeah, sure. And then at the moment when the kid player fired one shot, though, is anybody asking him or her, is that fire justified?
No.
Right? Do we have to consider the guy, the target had been shot down, has a family, could be a father of somebody else, could be a husband of some girl, could be a son of some mother? Do we ask that questions? No. We teach our kids to have a full loads of bullet, bang, 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 keep on shooting. That's a shame, my friend.
Now, but you see, you have that in other countries too. The video games are today in a globalized world.
All right, I
you-
agree.
So you cannot blame alone
Here
the video
in
games.
particular, all
I
right?
think what you have to blame is a general moral decline on a global scale.
And
it
United
is
States
particular-
in particular.
in particular because the United States, you see, is not a country which is burdened by history or traditions. Like if
In
you take
real-
China, it's a 4,000, 5,000 years of culture. Europe is 2,000, 3,000 years of culture. They are burdened, or they have traditions, like family traditions. It's totally broken down. When you think today it's very normal, if my parents are ailing and sick, I put them in an old age home, where actually the parents should belong right there where I'm living with my wife or with the kids, because that is the cohesive family which life has sprung from this. So all this is it's a convenience, the junk
Culture
food, the
has
culture.
gone away.
Yes, celebrity cult, who has the biggest breasts, who has the smallest
The social
behind, yeah.
moral has
Finished.
gone wrong.
Right, and that's
All right.
all together produces this result.
And you sometimes, some area, even the basic understanding is totally upside down.
Right.
The moment when you see the shooting, ba 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 bomb, you never get a one basic understanding that all you need to die is one bullet. One bullet, any one bullet of those bullets that can kill you, right? It is not a fact that you have 100 lives, you have 500 lives. It's not that. But in the game, you always teach our kids, I'm out of life. Give me some ammo. Ammo back in, and then they got the life back.
Also give more money into the machine.
Yeah.
So it's also the money talks, because this is what
Exactly.
sells. This is why it's being brought.
And the films, for films, you portrayed heroes, especially the outlaw heroes, right? Who goes on his own to bring justice for themselves. Those are the good part. The worst part is that the bad guys show you how to kill. There are different ways of killing. So together, this will this creates a culture of a massive shooting like that kind.
Yeah, but you see, this is global. What makes it here particularly interesting is that the availability of guns.
Yes, you're right.
And it has nothing to do with that you can buy guns because it has.
Somewhere it is easier to get a gun than a vodka.
Yeah. So, that's what it is. So there has to be, draconian measures. You can't blame the gun. For example, blaming the NRA doesn't make sense, because the NRA says, this is how their mantra, the only way to stop a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
All right.
So difficult to argue against that.
Yeah. For that, I have my personal story to apply. I used to be gun control proactive, and I was very loud in that area, right? Later, when I continue to see what I see, I shifted myself, right? Now I'm supporting gun control with some checks, some ground check, ground information check, and still to have gun, to allow the gun all the way to the point to copy Texas. To let you have the gun, let you wear the gun on your belt. So any moment something goes wrong, there goes the gun. At least the heroes will protect us. Do you agree?
No.
Or do you think so?
No, I don't think that concealed is even make the whole system worse.
Well, so we may find out that in the shooting rate, the massive shooting rate, right, in gun controlled areas or with the concealed weapons, which are greater. Probably we'll find out in the next show we will talk about.
For example, you see most of the shooters are male, and also almost none of the shooters are members of the NRA. So blaming the NRA doesn't solve the problem. And actually, as far as I'm concerned, you cannot solve the problem because it's like a cancer. And there's nothing. As I said, there's almost 300 million guns available in America.
Equivalent to the population.
Yeah.
Almost one each. All right, my dear friend, let's take a short moment out. We come back to put everything together and see if we have a conclusion. If we do not, what else do we have? Stay with us. We'll be right back, please.
Senator everything expected constraint. It's like the same Broadway. My name is Paul James. I host English News Report.
And a Golden Angel Award ceremony.
Hello, dear friends, lovely audiences. Welcome back to the show. Jack Chow, your host. With me is my good friend, Mr. Chris Nimi, internationally renowned director, producer, and screenwriter. Also, his archivist and the political commentator. The fact I drag him over is that I would like to borrow his knowledge of the American culture, which stands for the Hollywood culture of films, right? As a matter of fact, we found out Hollywood films are only partially to be blamed and not blamed for the whole thing, because we have other areas to talk about, which now I agree, right? Let me ask you a question. Before that, I have a little summary. Let me know if I'm wrong, right? When something happens of that altitude, after investigation, they come towards two conclusions. Number one, they tell you it was a terrorist attack, right? Number two, they tell you the shooter was a victim of mental conditions. So nobody takes responsibility. So that's the end of the day. Something happened, wipe it off history, and that's it. Do you agree with me?
Yes, but you see that also their realization that you cannot do anything against it. Because if you have this kind of mindset in a country where, like America, there's nothing you can do really. I mean, even if nobody could have a gun, there are 300 million guns out there, so there is no way if I want to have a gun, I'll get one. Permission, no permission, I think it's too late. What you need is a general moral rejuvenation and renaissance of morality. That's what you need. You have to change 100 years of a gun culture and glorifying war and having military budgets which are obscene, which are bigger than all the other military budgets of all countries combined. The whole system of exploitation, of plunder, of money, taking advantage of weaker elements of society, it's a natural human instinct because we are all predators. But we have to change from the inside out. From the outside in, it doesn't work.
That's a good thought, very good thought. I would say that what we are calling for is something, a project of 100 years. 100 years of project. It cannot happen overnight.
No.
Cannot happen overnight, right? When kids were taught from the point, say there's a Western style cowboy film, guys encounter each other, whoever draws the gun faster wins it, and the other guy, well, lay on the ground to die. So now, okay, from a director point of view though, if this happened in real life, back 200 years ago, in the West though, would anybody question why the people die, why the guy died?
No.
No?
No. Because you see there there was a reason, most likely the guy was a bad guy or something. It's different. Today it's different because look, these people go in any place you go, you could be victim. All of a sudden somebody has a gun and shoots.
Of course.
But that was, and we have to distinguish this because that was, a guy was known as bad guy. And therefore I resent when it's being said movies, video games, because this is anonymous and there is no the bad guy is clearly identified. He's a bad guy. But here, it's just that, and it's not even a lust to kill, because it has to do with, and we go back to white supremacy, it has to be with this racial attitude, I have to protect my turf. And that's what it is, and that's not going to change.
I have a question that bothers me for the past week. When I was a kid, in the neighborhood, there was a lunatic guy who had problem with everyone. Sometimes he would take a knife, a cooking knife on the street, wow, 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 doing that. He will hurt people if you do not run, if you're on his way, right? However, this very guy, acclaimed a lunatic, acclaimed a guy with a mental condition, heavy condition, never touched anything of his own family.
Interesting.
The father, the mother, her sister, his sister, his brother, he treated them so well. And he even came to their defense. Right? So I'm thinking, even to the lunatic, is there some bottom lines that we can taught them, at least prevent them from killing their own? Like the last killer, they killed his two own sisters.
One sister.
One sister.
But that was probably accidental, not on purpose. I don't know if you can specify the whole thing.
This bothers me a lot.
Yes.
Why can't we do it?
Because it's, I mean, how do you know that this young man you just met on the street, what do you know how he feels and what he thinks? You cannot do mind control. I mean, a lot of dictators have tried that and failed. There is no way that you can control the world. You have to have a moral rejuvenation. You have to tell children in the school, look. But it's also very difficult because you're dealing with a culture. You're dealing with a culture and you're dealing with a declining society as far as their chances to have a nice life are concerned. For example, where do you find most of the white supremacists? You find them in very economically not very flourishing areas in America. People lost their job and they're blaming everybody else but themselves. It's very simple. I think it's really something, you know, when I hear all these people, we have to have gun control, we have to have this, nothing will help.
Looking at the size of the project, which you and I agreed has to be hundreds of years of hard working, right? What are we doing? What are we doing now? What do we need to do to protect ourselves? More guns or less guns? Simple like that.
Certainly, because more or less doesn't matter, there are plenty around. But one thing I'm certainly not agree to have the Texas thing with carrying concealed weapons, because that is not good. Because nature of human is you may get a violent reaction because we all have a certain violence in us, some more, some less. And then you do this, you have a concealed gun and you just
it looks like you and I have to end this show with a little disagreement.
Yeah.
This area, this is the exact area that I have disagreed with you.
Yeah.
All right,
I know.
now. According to police, they do the summary themselves.
Yeah.
Right? And of course, they don't want to say bad words about themselves. They say an average of response within reasonable range could be 6 to 14 minutes to the site. When the first call of 911, right? The shortest 6 minutes, right? Like say last time in San Bernardino, they were there within 3 minutes. That was exactly because there was a unit passing by. They went on the site, right? So that was not off record. That's not into calculation. What can be taken into calculation is between 6 and 14. So how do people protect themselves within the 6 to 14 minutes, except, but a gun?
Yeah, so you have a gun battle.
Yes. All right. Not a battle, not necessarily always battle though. Knowingly, this area, everybody has a concealed weapon. Would that scare the bad guy away? Deter effect?
I don't think so, because I think they're so focused on what they want to do that nothing is going to deter them. Because, look, the guy in Texas didn't even kill himself, which he could have done, He's now facing
make a
200 years in jail.
Yeah,
and
let's do
maybe the death
let's do
sentence.
this.
Yeah.
Let's assume if you were the shooter,
Yes.
right? You plan something like El Paso, right?
Yes.
So are you choosing a gun-free zone or concealed weapon area?
Until today, I didn't know about gun-free zones.
Yeah.
Now I know.
Now you know.
And
would you
of
choose?
course I would choose, but I mean, you can't, then you have to make the whole country gun-free. It doesn't work. It doesn't work. There is, and I tell you, there is no
For a short time,
solution.
For a short time, it has to be that way. I wasn't on this side until today. And I'm determined that to deal with a bad guy with a gun is a good guy with a gun.
So that's what the NRA says. And
Yeah.
there's
All right.
hardly an argument against that. But on the other hand, it's going to be a shooting battle.
Okay, my dear friend, we're on 1 minute over time, but I really believe it is worth the discussion to find out that before anything could be done morally, culturally, I would say that a gun in hand for the right people, good people, is the best way to fight against the bad people, which we disagree from each other. Anyway, we let the disagreement remain, difference remain. So we thank you very much for watching, and to Chris, thank you very much for sharing.
Thank you. 谢谢你。